Mm, we're going to start with the opening recitation, uh, which is the aspiration bodhicitta and engagement bodhicitta, followed by refuge and the four immeasurables. Dala Dhamma Jebe Dra Nobar Jebe Ge Tarbadan Tamje Gembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tam Jegi Su Jebe Manam Kadang Nyambe Senjen Tamje Dewa Dan Tungya dandre nerdu lana me pa yang da para zobe janju rinpo je to para ja dala dongwa je pe dra no par je pe ge tarpa dan tam je kembe bardu jo pra je pa tam je ge su je pe ma nang ka dang Nyampe senjen tamje dewa dan den dungao dande nerdu lana me paya dabara sope janju rempo je dobra ja dala dangwa jebe da nobar jebe ge tarpa dan tamje kembe bardu chopra jeba tam jegi su jebe ma nanga dan nyambe senchen tamje dewa dan ten tungya dan de nudu lana me paya Dapara sobe janju rempo je topara ja de je de sama geki bardu lunga yisum gewala go mashi bardu lunga yisum gewala go de tereng ne sunte ne ma santa samgi bardu lunga yisum gewala go Sangye jodan soge jonam la chamju baridu dani kyamsu je dage junsu gibe sonam ge jola penjer sangye jubra shu sangye jodan soge jonam la chanju baridu dani kyamsu je dage junsu gibe sonam ge Jola penchir sangye drupra shu sangye chodan soge chonam la chanju bardu dane kyabsu chi dage jinso gibe sonam gi jola penchir sangye drupra shu Nang kada nyampe senchen tamje dewa dang dewe gyundan dampar gyuji dungyao dan dungyao gi gyudan drawa gyuji dungyao mepe dewa dhamme drawa gyuji nering chadang nidang drawe dang nyong la nebra gyuji ma Kadang nyampe senjen tamje dewa dan dewe gyundan dampar girji dungyao dan dungyao gi gyudan dewa girji dungyao mepe dewa dhamme dewa girji Niring chada nidang drewe tanyong la ne para gyuji manang kadang nyampe senjen tamje dewa dang dewe gyundan dembara gyurji dungyao dan dungyao gi gyudan dewa gyurji dungyao mepe dewa dangme dewa gyurji niring chada nidang drewe Danyong la nebra gyuji. So these four immeasurable minds, otherwise also known as the four divine dwellings, divine translates the Sanskrit word Brahma. So it is said that there are these more refined beings within samsara, actually. There are these more refined beings living in realms above us, higher than us. And the way they are reborn into these realms is having cultivated their minds to levels of refinement so that they are reborn in those realms. And these are the realms of the Brahmas, of the Brahma deities. And the highest of these is called the Great Brahma, Mahabrahma. And one of the characteristics of these Brahma beings is that they are suffused, their minds are suffused by at least one of these four immeasurables. So that's why these four immeasurables are also called the four divine dwellings, the four Brahma beings, the four Brahma dwellings. So these four, the first one here defined as may all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. So this is the definition for Maitri or Metta, loving kindness, friendliness, wishing well, wishing goodwill towards all beings without limit, without exception. You can understand that this this as the basic place to work from. So although it's called the four immeasurable minds, in fact, if you look at all the places where this notion of the four immeasurable minds or the four Brahma dwellings, if you look at all the different sources, you will immediately notice that while there is, good amount of instructions and focus on how to train in developing loving kindness, the other three trainings, developing compassion, developing joy, and equanimity, doesn't have such an explicit focus. Right? It's not so easy to find, in the words of the Buddha, very explicit instructions on how to develop these other three. And the reason primarily is because we are to start with Maitri, or loving kindness. Then from the place of loving kindness, the other three would arise more easily. So one way, for example, to understand the relationship of these three to loving kindness is when we have suffused our own heart with happiness and the causes of happiness, and then from there, wishing happiness and the causes of happiness towards all beings, as they say, goodwill towards all, malice towards none. Malice is the opposite of loving kindness. And that is, malice is what's called the obvious opposite of Maitri. And then sometimes in these teachings, the Buddha also identified what he calls the near enemy. Near enemy means the evil twin. So each of these have their evil twins. So loving kindness's evil twin is possessiveness. I love you, but you love in such a way that you want to control, you want to possess, you want to own. If I cannot have you, nobody can have you. That's what we say, to our favorite chocolate, ice cream. If I cannot have you, nobody can have you. So that kind of possessiveness is it bears some resemblance to Maitri, but it's actually its evil twin. So watch out for that kind of love. So when we begin to train ourselves to experience this happiness and the causes of this happiness, and we begin to extend this to others, then compassion easily comes up, and here defined here as liberated from suffering, the wish to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Definition of compassion, according to the chant that we do, which is wishing freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering. So when we are suffused with Maitri, or loving kindness, and we come across suffering very easily, very naturally, we wish, whether it's ourselves or others, without being taught, spontaneously, and with no side effect, no negative side effect, if you come from a place of first stable, reliable, loving kindness. And no compassion fatigue at all, because you have this pool, you have this ocean of Maitri to sustain you. Then when you see suffering, immediately, genuinely, you wish this suffering to not be there. And you understand, for the suffering to be there, there are causes of suffering that have been created, and you also wish for this cause of suffering to be gone. Joy is what arises when, again, from the place of loving kindness, from the place of Maitri, you come across, you encounter happiness. Whether your own happiness or others' happiness, you see that, you encounter that, then immediately joy arises. You become so energetic, you become so light, and you just even radiate more loving kindness. So that's joy. Equanimity, here defined as, right, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. So for ourselves, we become free from this bias of obsessively only wanting pleasant things, good things, successful things. Then in a paranoid way, not wanting unhappiness, not wanting suffering, fearing suffering, cannot stand at all, when things don't go right for you. So personally, for equanimity, we really need to, steady our heart. And main cause of equanimity has to be coming from understanding Buddha's teachings on karmic causality. The more we understand Buddha's teachings on karmic causality, the less we will find ourselves being rocked by, being shaken by the winds of change, where happiness and suffering keeps jumping in and out, in and out, in and out. We hold steady. So this is what equanimity is: holding steady our heart, not letting things so easily disturb our ability to hold steady. To hold steady. So here, equanimity has a near enemy. The near enemy, meaning the evil twin, is indifference. Many of us, actually, I met so many of you, so afraid that you'll become indifferent in the midst of all the difficulties that we are seeing in the world. No matter where you are, I'm sure many of us are feeling, oh my gosh, right now the world seems so upside down. Then on the one hand, you cannot stand the suffering. You find it so painful, so unbearable. But on the other hand, and this is a good sign, on the other hand, you're also afraid that because you cannot bear this suffering, you may shut down, you may become indifferent. So yes, that's a good thing to be concerned about. But equanimity is necessary. Indifference is a near enemy of equanimity. So we need to navigate away from indifference. We need to navigate away from so afraid of suffering that we walk around kind of pretending everything is just fine. That's not equanimity. Equanimity actually sees suffering, also sees happiness, but sees that happiness and suffering is a ripening of karmic causality. Karmic causality, without going too much into it, a reminder to everyone, Buddha's teachings on karma is not about rewards and punishment. It's not about you deserve or you don't deserve. We certainly experience the unfolding of karmic causality in those terms. Oh, I did something good. Oh, I deserve this. Oh, I did something bad. Or usually when you did something bad, we're not willing to admit that. It's more like when you experience something unpleasant, then grudgingly you say, I must have done something bad. But at the back of your mind, it's like, but why should I have to face this? I don't even remember doing this in this lifetime, right? So explicitly or not, we tend to interpret Buddha's teachings on karma as rewards and punishment. Then, of course, for some of us, it might trigger memories of maybe very strict parents, Then we imagine karma to be like a supernatural, impersonal parent, always like following you around, judging you for having been a good girl, for having been a bad boy, right? And then we have all these kinds of baggage. But Buddha's main teaching on karmic causality is not about that. Buddha is just describing to us how what the mind experiences, perceives, and produces manifests in 3 dimensions, so to say, in our lives. That's the basic principle. So it says it's the self-embodiment of our thoughts. Our thoughts, our feelings takes on forms, creates 3D forms and experiences. And then, because we have preferences, we have likes and dislikes, so the labels of happiness and suffering turns up. Then we have to manage those labels. So equanimity comes from really understanding the principle of karmic causality. Finally, one very special kind of insight that Gyoba Jigten Sungan, founder of Drigung Kagyu, offered in terms of understanding how do we how can we make these 4 immeasurable minds transfer to actions in the world. And specifically, we're talking about a set of Buddha activities we call lei in Tibetan, tin lei. Lei is just karmic actions, and then tin lei is the exalted actions, enlightened actions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. are called Tinle. So then, in terms of Tinle, or exalted activities or Buddha activities, generally they are divided into four types: pacifying activities, increasing activities, magnetizing activities, and wrathful activities of destroying. Wrathful activities of destroying. And this, in some ways, come from the ancient magical traditions of India, where Buddhism began, right? The broader cultural context of India. So this notion is not specific to even Buddha. Indians had this understanding that powerful beings have magical powers to act in these four modes of acting. Acting in a pacifying way, meaning calming, pacifying, calming down pain and suffering. Increasing the power to increase, the power to grow, the power to make more. Then attracting, also called poetically to magnetize, right? Like a magnet pulling in all the iron. Also the connotation of overpowering and control. And then finally, right, wrathful, destruction. This is like towards the most difficult, towards the most challenging situations. We use this wrathful. So the imagery of like crushing our enemies. So in the ordinary context, Indians would go look for shamans and magicians, to do these kinds of things. Like, can you crush my enemies for me? Or, I'm really interested in this person. Can you like help me pull this person to me? Either as a romantic partner or I would like to have a business contract signed with this person, or I would like to win this lawsuit. How can I influence the decision maker in my favor? And so in the mundane world, there are all these ways to manipulate situations, to our advantage. That's the broader ancient cultural context, right? Then, of course, Buddha taught actually these types of activities, if used in a mundane way, then they will probably just lead to even more suffering, lead to even more I want on the one hand. I don't want on the other hand. But if we know, if we have clear seeing, if we remove the afflictive emotions, and that allows clear seeing, allows for seeing to become clearer and clearer and clearer, then these four types of activities can be utilized. These four modes of acting can be transformed for the purpose of benefiting others. For the purpose of benefiting others in what way? Ultimately, the ultimate benefit that we can bring to others is to bring them to come and see the truth about things. In Buddha Dharma, we talk a lot about benefiting beings. Yeah, of course, there's the obvious way of benefiting beings, or in some ways obvious but limited, as in feed the hungry, clothe the cold, encourage the sad and suffering. Yes, all those are necessary. When someone in front of you is suffering, hunger, cold, loneliness. Yes. But whatever we give them there to immediately relieve their pain, those are temporary relief. The real ultimate relief is for them to see how things work, right? As we say, to see how things work. Principally to see how karmic causality works. And therefore, to apply the Dharma to achieve happiness and freedom from suffering. So that is still the main reason why we act in the four modes of pacifying, increasing, magnetizing, and destroying. Now, today's program and next weekend will focus specifically actually on the third, the magnetizing. Because it's part of the Lotus family, and soon we will talk about these Buddha families. So it's about the Lotus family. It's about magnetizing. But as an introduction, first, right, these four modes of acting. Again, you may want to write it down. Pacifying, increasing, magnetizing, and destroying. These four. Kyoba illuminates what is the nature of these four modes of acting. He says, it tells us that it's directly related to the four immeasurable minds that we talked about. So a few weeks ago, I gave a weekend program at the Cusco Drigong Center on these four immeasurables. So the recording is already available, freely available on the Drigong Dhamma Kirti YouTube channel. Jeff is working on creating a set of videos with only English. And the current set that is there has the advantage of both English and Spanish. And then for some of you who just want to listen directly in English, eventually we will post an edited set of teachings that is only in English. But there, I shared this, and I will repeat here. Gilbert Rinpoche said, let's begin with magnetizing. He says, how do you magnetize? How do you attract, in other words? And even, right, how do you have control over others? He says, it's when you have mastered Maitri, loving kindness, friendliness, warm-heartedness. He says, that is the true way to achieve the power to magnetize, the power to attract, and even the power to have influence over others. You should work on that by working on loving kindness, Maitri. So loving kindness is also then, we should understand the essence of the Lotus family, which is Amitabha, Avalokiteshvara, Gurukule, all the red deities especially in Tantra. These are all Lotus family deities. So the essence of the Lotus family deities is Maitri, loving kindness. You may try, manipulative ways to try to attract, to try to pull in, to even like use deception, This is the proverbial used car salesman making promises, using deception, to pull in customers. But here, Gilbert Rinpoche says, the real pull is the pull of your metta, the pool of your loving kindness. Okay? Now, destroying, right? The activity of destroying, he says, the real power to destroy will come from you having mastered compassion. Because in the end, what are we destroying? What are we seeking to destroy? We're seeking to destroy suffering. And to destroy suffering. The only reliable way to destroy suffering is compassion. Remember, compassion is seeing suffering, wanting suffering to end, and knowing suffering will only end when the causes of suffering has been relinquished, put aside. So if you want to master the so-called wrathful, destructive Buddha activity, which is aimed at destroying suffering, then you need to master compassion. Compassion. Then, to increase, he says, how do you increase? You increase by mastering joy. A joyful heart. You can kind of look around, that people who are joyful, they attract good things, right? They kind of, it's like they have an abundance, a certain energy of abundance in them. Then with more joy, more abundance will turn up. More growth becomes possible. Likewise, if we're not joyful, and then we notice, things are not growing. Whatever area in your life is simply not growing, is stagnant. There you need to activate joy. Now, of course, that's the catch-22, you may say. Well, precisely. I don't have joy because I don't have much. And so then we're caught in a cycle. That's why samsara is called a cycle. Yes, if you are relating to all of this in the framework of, there is a God created a just world, right? A fair world. Then you'll say, this is so unfair, this is so unjust. I don't have. And so then I don't have even more. Then you're caught. But if you understand the teachings on cause and effect, then you know that there's no other solution. You have to break through the cycle that you're caught in. So you have to find ways to cultivate joy. But again, remember, in order to cultivate joy, start with loving kindness. The Lotus family principle of loving kindness is at the basis. Then finally, the activity of pacifying suffering, cooling things down, that comes from, interestingly, equanimity. Why we suffer, is because we get thrown up and down and up and down and up and down. We have no equanimity. We are not holding steady. We let our emotional state be easily disturbed by conditions. So equanimity is weight, developing effective and wise weightiness, so that you stabilize, you steady your heart. So these recitations we do at the beginning, the four immeasurable minds. Yeah? So hopefully next time, when you repeat the four immeasurable minds, you realize, oh, how amazing, the instructions on the four immeasurables. Gilbert Rinpoche says, in fact, these preliminaries are more profound than the techniques that are often considered profound. We tend to think, sophisticated techniques, as these days people would say, how to hack, how to hack the mind. Gilbert Rinpoche disagree. All these hackings, they are just not where the real thing is. The real thing, the real power lies in developing clearer and clearer and clearer understanding and trust in the so-called foundational, so-called basic teachings. When Buddha Shakyamuni taught the so-called basic foundational teachings, many did not understand. And so he had to spend 45 years finding all different ways to help people understand. It said that his first 5 disciples, they understood. They didn't need so much. Before long, they became awake. So then they helped him to go wake up other people. So then, over the next 45 years of Buddha Shakyamuni's life, he had to find various means, various methods in order to help us gain happiness, relinquish, put aside, set aside suffering. So, this weekend was meant to be, now, just today, the start of potentially this year's kind of focus. Over this year, I think, try to create programs that are focused on the Lotus family. So Lotus family, let's say something about that. In the early tantras that was taught to the world, when the Buddha taught secret mantra to the world, first he articulated 3, what he calls the 3 families. Family here means like species, you could even say that. There are 3 species. And these are not biological species, obviously. These are spiritual species. And all 3 of these species are, you could say, ways in which the Dharmakaya, ways in which the actual state of Buddhahood manifests in our world. Right? Now, why does Buddhahood manifest in the world? Well, only for one reason. To reach out, to communicate, to free those who are not yet freed. To liberate those who are not yet liberated. To give rest to those who have not yet found rest. So in the early secret mantra materials, you could say the first batch that the Buddha taught, the Buddha articulated 3 main families, gotra in Sanskrit. 3 gotras, sometimes also kula. More literally, gotra is more like species, genus, yeah. And then kula is family in Sanskrit. What are the three? The Tathagata family. Tathagata is another word for Buddha. The Tathagata family, the Vajra family, and the Padma or lotus family. These are said to be the three families. Then these three are associated with, linked with, exalted or enlightened body, speech, and mind. In particular, lotus is the exalted speech. Speech, when we say speech, it's not just about speech, like talking, It's not just about language. Actually, speech, more importantly, covers what we may call energy. That bridge between the body and the mind, energy. So these days I've seen some teachers translating it as body, energy, and mind instead of body, speech, and mind. So speech actually is not just about communication. It's about the energy that animates that communication and the energy that bridges, that links body and mind. So the lotus family is exalted speech. The Tathagata family is exalted body. And the Vajra family is exalted mind. So the three families. And these three families is also then linked to the clearing, the dispelling of the three poisons. Just a footnote, the Vajra and the Tathagata family, sometimes their qualities are interchangeable, depending on the particular Tantra. So sometimes the Tathagata family is said to be mind, and sometimes the Vajra family is said to be body, and sometimes they are reversed. So anyway, you can link the body, exalted body, speech, and mind, and then also the clearing, right? The purification of, the clearing of the three poisons. The three poisons. So Vajra family, the clearing of aggression. Lotus family, Padma family, the clearing of attachment, desire, ambitions. I want, I want, I want. So again, this focus on Lotus family then will help us work through I want, I want, I want. Ironically, I want, I want, I want as a predominant mental state is becoming more and more influential in our lives. I think, I could be wrong about this. This is just my own thinking, okay? You don't need to accept this. You can consider this. I think when we were living, our ancestors, like 1,000 years ago, where the reality of getting what you want is such that most of the time you don't get what you want, then the more powerful state of affliction is not really so much about desire, I feel. It's more about aggression. Because most of the time you're frustrated with not being able to get. And so you also don't get in the habit of always wanting. Because if most of the time you don't get what you want, you don't have much energy to I want. But now, So easy in some ways. But as they say, like drinking water, drinking salt water to try to quench thirst, the irony is, instead of more satisfaction, now more frustration. And that is the problem with desire. Frustration. So that is also a topic that we will focus on when I said we will focus more on the lotus family. Frustration. More than ever, right? If we objectively think about, right, how is the world doing compared to 50 years ago, 100 years ago, in terms of material wealth, in terms of access to material wealth, unprecedented right now. Unprecedented. But are we more satisfied now? I don't think so. In fact, it's harder and harder and harder to be satisfied. It's harder and harder and harder to appreciate what we call the simple pleasures of life. It's become more and more demanding, all these wants. So focusing on the lotus family, can, I believe, really help us see more clearly, what is it that we are so afflicted with right now? And hopefully, have a way to become free from this affliction. And then the third, is the Tathagata family dispels, is related to the clearing of delusion. Clearing of delusion. From these three families, in the later Tantras, it gets elaborated into the five Buddha families. So two more are added. The Ratna family, the jewel family, and then the Karma family, the activity family. Then altogether, you have the five Buddha families. And so all the unexcelled yoga tantra class of secret mantra materials operate with this system, this more developed system of five Buddha families. In the early teachings of secret mantra, the focus is on the three families. Anyway, we are going to focus on the Buddha family, the lotus family, the Padma family. Let's see. Javier, can you turn back on the ability, or rather, uh, let's see if there are questions, and if there are, please raise your virtual hand, and then one of our people will ask you to unmute or give you the power to unmute. We have muted everyone to prevent accidental unmuting yourself, and then without you knowing, we can hear everything that is going on where you are. So just raise your virtual hand if you have a question, and then one of us will unmute you. No questions. Good. I like this. That means crystal clear. It could mean crystal clear. It could also mean bored out of my mind. No questions to ask. Can you move on to something more interesting? Yes, I know for some of you, you have heard me repeat this so many times. And then for some of you, it may be new. But before you said you have heard this so many times, okay? Make sure you have memorized it, because if I ask you and you cannot answer me back, then obviously it has come in here and gone out that way. All that remains is just a memory that, oh yeah, I've heard this before. Then, when you're in the bardo and you really need this, then what? Oh, yes. So, can someone unmute James?
Yes, Dr. Locke, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I have a question about equanimity.
Mm-hmm.
The world is very chaotic, and
Yes.
there's a lot of emotional highs and lows among people. There's
Yes,
people that are very
for
disturbed.
sure.
And how do you manage dealing with people who are basically impossible to deal with because of the way their minds are?
Yeah, stay
And
away.
if in the course of a day, in the course of a day, we encounter all kinds of different people. How can you maintain that center of peace and just keep it there? It's
Yeah,
I react, I guess, overreact. Yes,
yeah, you should visualize them as Buddhas, which they are.
that's true. They have Buddha nature. There's somewhat of a difference.
Oh,
Um,
no, no, no. Actually, in our tradition, we say they are Buddhas, not Buddha nature. They are Buddhas.
okay,
Once you have taken
okay. So
secret
then we
mantra, once you have taken secret mantra empowerment, they are now Buddhas. They are no longer just potentially Buddhas. They are now literally Buddhas.
well, that's wow. Okay. I just mean in cases where there's like violence or somebody's really angry and things like that. How do you deal with that? I had a doctor's appointment yesterday. My doctor was telling me that somebody became violent. They had a very hard time
Yes.
dealing with them. So it happens a lot,
Of
and
course.
especially
Of course.
today when people are fighting each other for gasoline.
Oh, yes.
It's it, it,
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
my
No.
problem is just being
Right.
reacting to them. How do you
So we have to learn
not do that?
not to react. We have to learn, not to react. Not easy. No simple mathematical equation to apply. Uh, but basically, uh, I think I know Buddha offered all different resources to handle different situations. But the underlying one is once we really truly understand karmic causality, we ourselves first uh, need to not get baited or triggered so easily. Then only then, uh, can we have the opportunity to radiate maitri towards others. And when we can radiate that, then at the very least we protect ourselves. You see, most of the time we want to solve problems, but then we don't accept, what the Buddha has said about how things work. Then, in that case, no matter how hard we try, I think no solution. Would banging your head against the wall solve, the sufferings of this world? It will not. Mm. Is it enough, this understanding, to stop you from banging your head against the wall? Maybe, maybe not. Hard to say. Tracy,
Good morning, Dr. Lai.
good morning.
Sometimes you hear about two additional afflictive emotions, the pride
Yes.
and jealousy. Are they related to the two additional Buddha?
Yeah, the 5 Buddha families. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, for sure. Yes. So out of the 3, then you have the 5, and so on and so forth. And then up to, the 100 Buddha families, they say. But I've not actually encountered a list of 100. So thank goodness you don't have to memorize the 100 Buddha families. Yeah, questions are like rabbits, Once you have one, you have two. Once you have two, you have many, which is good. Okay, now next, Rene. Cannot hear you.
Sorry. Good morning.
Yes.
So I always have this question about the four immeasurables.
Yes.
That in the original teachings, there seems to be not so much emphasis on, the ones that I label as older. That's what I mean, the original teachings, maybe from Maitri on the four immeasurables, do not emphasize so much like Maitri towards oneself, compassion towards
Who
oneself.
said that?
Me, who is ignorant about it.
Yeah, not true.
Okay. So,
Simply not true.
Okay.
Yeah. Buddha says you have to radiate that towards yourself before you can radiate towards others.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's not a new age thing. It's not a new thing.
Okay.
Look at the original text.
Okay.
Yeah? The Metta Sutta,
So the question was like, actually, then all these, the four immeasurables have like these two dimensions, ones towards others and also ones towards oneself, like the four of them.
You have to start by tasting it yourself. Otherwise, no basis of developing it towards others. That's all, right? Basic principle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And if you are not able to taste it yourself, how are you going to serve it to others? It's just simple logic there,
Mm-hmm.
And if you constantly cannot find it, right? How are you going to give it to anyone?
Mm.
First, you need this resource. Then you can give it to others,
Okay.
If you don't have it, how are you going to give it to anyone?
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes, Judy.
In response to Jim's question, I think it's very likely that whoever is acting out in a destructive or violent way is probably not been exposed to the teachings, and they don't know how things work. And I think in what follows in not knowing how things work is they don't understand what's driving them. And it's an emotional response to something that they have not even been able to intellectualize. And in that way, I think they don't have a choice.
Yes.
Choice is overrated. We say people do, but in fact, if they don't understand, can't change the emotional behavior that just naturally arises.
Correct.
And so if they don't know and don't have a choice, it's easier to step away from it and feel compassion that they have not been exposed to the wonderful teachings
Mm-hmm.
that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of can remove, I think, can put some distance between us and observing whatever
Mm-hmm.
we are observing.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Which
Yes.
can maybe bring a little
Yes.
equanimity.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, Shantideva talks about it, in his chapter on patience, the one who, you are angry at the one who beats you with a stick, like, so, uh, let's think about that situation, right? That
Mhm.
thought experiment, he says, uh, who, what is the direct cause of pain? Uh, so he's wanting you to see that the direct cause of the pain from that beating is the stick, is the direct cause. And then you say, well, the stick is wielded by this crazy guy, who cannot control this crazy guy, this angry guy. Then he said, okay, fair enough. Now we switch to the person now wielding the stick. And then, of course, Shantideva says, but who is wielding this person? Oh, it's their emotions that they cannot control. So then he says, then if you want to get angry at, you should be angry at the emotion. He has so many ways, then he also uses the thought experiment of like, and obviously he's talking to fellow Buddhists, and he said, so you believe in karma, don't you? And he's like, yes, we do. And he said, okay, so, uh, uh, you know, your negative karma that needs ripening has summoned this guy to pick up a stick to hit you. So now you have caused this person. Of course, there's humor there. I think sometimes people miss the humor. You know, but the humor is also making a point. He says, "See now, because of your negative karma, you have caused this person to create negative karma to beat you with a stick. So shouldn't you apologize to this guy?" Talk about gaslighting, this is like Shantideva's gaslighting. Of course, not to be used against other people, but these are various types of thought experiments Shantideva and the Buddha has given us to think about, right? Then some of you might say, yeah, that I all get, but then at the Buddhist center, this guy should know better. Then you feel like slapping the guy, like, did you hear about these teachings? And you're still acting so unruly. Even those of us who have heard these teachings, who have been exposed to these teachings, our habit propensities are so strong that when the conditions arise, we just, get dragged around accordingly. So not just because the people didn't hear about these teachings, even the people who heard about these teachings, even the people who are like trying to apply these teachings, still. So, Maitri, don't be so harsh on yourself. Don't be so harsh on others. Don't place so much expectations on others. And don't place so much burden on yourself. Again, comes back to cultivating Maitri. Cultivating Maitri. Cultivating loving kindness. The essence of the Lotus family. This will help us overcome frustration, which is the real problem with desire, is frustration. So anyway, that was another hand that I saw. So we'll give a chance to see if maybe the hand is still there or maybe not there. Okay. So now we need to do some loving in the context of loving away obstacles. So originally, today was the day that we would first do this Amitabha empowerment. But even though we're not doing empowerment, it's good. So now I'm turning to the text, which you don't have because this is the Vajra Master's ritual text. So don't worry about it. So there's no text for you for here. But we did share a text, so maybe share again in the chat. Some of you may be able to download from the Zoom chat itself. Some of you may not if you are not able to. If you have registered, we have shared a text. And that text is the Sukhavati aspiration prayer. So there are layers to understanding Amitabha and the Pure Land. There are several layers of understanding. So we will begin with that first layer, which is this text that we shared. We have sent it to your email if you have registered with us directly. If you have registered through Guatemala Center, Tibet House, or if you have registered through Cusco Center, then Javier, can you also send to Cusco people? Somebody there, and then somebody there can share with the people who registered with Cusco. Unfortunately, I only have the English. So at some point, I'm sure you can figure out the translation. But before we look at that text, now I will go to the empowerment text to do what is called the dispelling of obstacles. But first, let me do the refuge and the bodhicitta that is from this text. So basically, the refuge is focused on Amitabha as the embodiment of the Buddhas of past, present, and future. Then Amitabha's speech as the Dharma, and Amitabha's retinue and example and activities as the noble Sangha. So together we take refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha, but as essentialized, as embodied by Buddha Amitabha and his mandala. We go for refuge, and we go for refuge out of the motivation of bodhicitta. Not just ourselves fearing suffering, but also seeing how all beings do not want suffering, and therefore we go for refuge. Okay, so I'm going to chant this in the Tibetan. This is what you should think. Kri dusum deshe gyawa malu pe sumgi dorje dempa nang thaye desum chodan de drum genden la chanchu bardu drokun kyapsu ji kri dusum deshe gyawa malu pe sumgi dorje dempa nang thaye Desun chodan de du genden la chanju bardu dokun kyapsu che dusum deshe gyawa malube sungi dorje denpa nang taye desun chodan de du genden la chanju bardu dokun kyapsu che. Now generating application, aspiration and application bodhicitta. So the words here says, recognizing that how all of us, are bound by these iron chains of incessant suffering. That beings are trapped in the prison of the 6 realms of existence. So in order to provide all of them a true refuge from these terrors, from these sufferings, we now generate aspiration and application bodhicitta. Bardu barme duke chadrogi shiching shing gyunge sonra tsupe jowanam nyam nge jigle yang da kyab jeje monam ju mondang jukpe changju semge do. Re parme duke chadogi jingshin gyungye sonra tsube towa na nyamye jigle yanda kyabje jir mondan jukpe changju semge. Re parme duke chadogi jingshin gyungye sonra tsube towa na nyangye jigle yangda kyabje jir mondan jube changju semge. And then next is making an offerings to satisfy all those entities and beings around here, around where you are, who may stand in the way of you successfully, effectively receiving these teachings, receiving these instructions. So then the words say, in this great mandala for accomplishing Amitabha, Amitayus. In our text, Amitabha and Amitayus, these 2 names are used interchangeably because in essence they are the same Buddha. Amitayus is in the aspect of longevity practices. Amitabha is often in the context of rebirth in his realm of great bliss. But essentially they are the same Buddha principle. And so in fact here it calls him, the deathless Lord. So in the mandala, in the great mandala for accomplishing the deathless Lord, so you have to see, where you are as the mandala of this deathless Lord. Now you're in the presence, you could say, of Buddha Amitabha, Buddha Amitayus. Then, if there are obstructors, if there are demons, if there are hindering forces who are not allowed to hear these teachings, not allowed to witness these activities. Not allowed means, like they themselves are not comfortable. They themselves, for whatever reason, they're not comfortable hearing this. And because they're not comfortable hearing this, they try to recruit you, and say, also you should not listen to this. So this is really, like dealing with difficult types. So instead of getting upset with them, you don't like this, why are you also preventing me from liking this? Instead of saying that to them, you just say, I know you don't like this. I know you don't want to listen to this. But I want to. So, right now, let's have a truce. I will make you this offering to satisfy you, to pacify you. How to pacify? Equanimity. Understanding how things work. Things work according to karmic causality. All of us make choices. And we only make choices based on our habits, unfortunately. Although the good news about habits is if you start to form, right, healthy habits, skillful habits, good habits, then it also becomes automatic. So habit is not all bad. Right? It's only when you routinely, stubbornly, confusedly habituate causes of suffering. If you habituate causes of happiness, then happiness becomes easier and easier and easier and easier. If you habituate Maitri, then Maitri becomes easier and easier and easier. If you habituate equanimity based on, equanimity has to be based on understanding, and then it becomes easier and easier and easier. So here we say, to those who may be opposed to this, I don't even need to judge you. I understand you are upset now. I see you, is what we're saying here. I see you, I hear you. I may not agree with you, but I see you. I see that you're suffering. So please take this offering, go enjoy it. Go enjoy it and kind of pacify them with this food of equanimity. So here, this symbolic offering I have. So now I'm going to do this. Ah hum ah hum ah hum. Manza amrita kunani hana hana pe. Garu mugam savada mana madhyana banadoda ahum bezoha. Garu mugam savada mana madhyana banadoda ahum bezoha. Garu mugam savada mana madhyana banadoda ahum bezoha. Re jime wang bo du ben gyung gu je nga ni cha gya ta bra mi wang we ba je dong ge ju jin dor ma di sim par gi la ra ra ne su de sum ba ne sum ba Then we then bless all the offerings that we have prepared for Buddha Amitabha, cleanse and purify, especially like the 8 offerings. This empowerment ritual actually has long sections on offerings, offering the 8 auspicious symbols, offering the 7 royal insignias, offering the 8 good substances, lots and lots of offerings. But before these offerings can be meaningfully made, they need to be cleansed and to purify. So the outer cleanse is, of course, when we are preparing these offerings, we prepare them with care, we're preparing them with devotion. You wash and you clean, the offering bowls. You wash and clean the objects that you offer. You arrange them all carefully. All these preliminaries are actually profound steps. If you see them as merely something to get out of the way, then you have deprived yourself of the power of these practices. So, for example, maintaining the shrine. filling the water bowls. And this is something that I do every day, as long as I'm in the house. Maybe once or twice, in 365 days, I miss. But it's a good place to always come back to, that at the very least, if you do nothing else, you set out your offerings. At the end of the day, you take the offerings out. You change the offerings. So when you make it a habit, then at the very least, in that few minutes that you spend filling the water bowls, those few minutes become very meaningful. Those few minutes reminds you of the need to turn to the objects of refuge. So here is the cleansing of the offerings. Om Bandra Amrita Kundali Hana Hana Hom Om So Bhava Shuddha Sarva Dharma Swabhava Shuddha Hantom Bengang Le Rinpoche No Ki Nangdu Hong Yik Shuva Le Jungwe Chu Yu Shabzil Meto Dubo Marme Trija Shashe Romo Duyong Rinchen Adun Trashi Tagye Geso Cho La Geso Cho Petin Rabjam Samikya Pen Namke Kang Tamche Gangwa Ringyuru Om Badra Argam Ahum Om Badra Padyang Ahum Om Badra Pushpam Ahum Om Badra Dupam Ahum Om Badra Aloge Ahum Om Badra Gende Ahum Om Badra Nevede Ahum Om Badra Shabda Ahum. And next is to invoke the presence of Buddha Amitabha and his retinue to come here, to come to you, wherever you are. So think, Buddha Amitabha, flanked by Avalokiteshvara and Vajrapani. They come from the realm of great bliss into your place, into your presence. And then when they arrive, you think you are making prostrations, you're paying homage, you're making offerings, and including the sevenfold puja. The sevenfold puja being the first two, pay homage and make offerings. The next two, reveal our faults, lay them aside, rejoice in the great merit of all beings, yourself, of others, of Buddhas, of Bodhisattvas. So that those are the next two. And the third two is requesting Buddha, in this case Buddha Amitabha, to teach the Dharma, to show us the way. Then the next is to request them not to depart, not to leave us, not to abandon us. And then the seventh is to dedicate merit. Shri Nuchu Deva Jingi Shinkamne Chumden Gombo Sanje Nangdaye Chokchu Sanje Changsem Gorgi Ko Tukje Sergo Nirdi Jimpo Je Namo Dharma Namo Samboga Kaya Okay. Mhm. So these are some of the basic, some of the preliminaries associated with this ritual text of the empowerment. So what you can expect today is two main things I want to do today. One is to look at the first layer of the practice and the significance and the practice of Amitabha, how to relate to Amitabha. And particularly this layer is the layer that is most relevant to the POA practice. So in some ways, this program this weekend and next Saturday, this Saturday and next Saturday, is inspired by the POA transmission that I did a few months ago, as to deepen your POA practice. So there's that. Then the empowerment text itself takes us to, you could say, another layer of Amitabha practice, where it's about the transformation of now, working with conditions that are now in this life. Whereas POA, in a way, right, or at least superficially, POA is about how to make sure when the time comes, you can transfer, which is what POA means, from here to Amitabha's Pure Land. The empowerment is more focused on training now to transform this land, this reality, this experience here into the Pure Land. That's why I sort of, teasingly, to one of the questions, I said, no. From the general Mahayana standpoint, you could say, we all have Buddha nature. But from the secret mantra standpoint, it's not that we have Buddha nature. We are Buddhas. We are Buddhas. And yes, there is a cognitive dissonance to that. What do you mean we are Buddhists? I don't feel very Buddha-like. Yeah, exactly. And if I'm honest, I can say, me, right now, the one who is teaching you, also don't feel very Buddha-like. So it's okay to admit that, But we need to take secret mantra's declaration seriously. At the very least, we need to take it seriously, which is saying, you are Buddha right now. So this cognitive dissonance between, I don't feel very Buddha-like, and then the declaration of secret mantra, you are Buddha right now. Take these two together and let these two, confront each other. So that it becomes kind of like the way Zen tradition, Rinzai Zen especially, talks about working with the koan. Koan is sometimes said to translate like a riddle, but it's not a riddle. Actually, the meaning of koan is literally, it means public case. Public case means it's actually a legal term. In Chinese, koan is the Japanese pronunciation of these Chinese characters, gong an. Gong an means public case in the sense of public record. Public record as a legal precedent. That means it carries authority. That means it carries weight. So often, right, these koans detail the interaction between a student and a master. And in that interaction, something about the truth, something about that which is real, something about reality, something about suchness transpires there. Not always, but often the disciple catches this glimpse. And the master successfully introduces the student. But to bystanders, that exchange is all kind of like a riddle. That exchange is all mystifying. To struggle with the koan, to struggle with the public record, means to try to taste what is it that transpired there that I don't get. So here, you can consider this as a type of public record. Secret mantra has declared loud and clear, every one of us right now are Buddhists. If you're honest about your own experience, your own state, you will say, I don't feel very Buddha-like. So this is the koan, these two parts. To struggle with this, to work with this, is at the essence of idam practice. Don't think, idam practice is superficially, oh, I'm Amitabha, I look like this, look like this, look like this, look like this, in the center of my heart, there's this syllable, that mantra goes around, and that's superficial, It's like, oh yeah, good boy, yeah, good girl, but not much is actually going on, Once you get up of your meditation seat, all of samsara comes rushing back. Temporarily for an hour, maybe at best 2 hours, or if you're doing a week of retreat, at best 1 week, you keep the barbarians, out of the city. But the minute retreat is over, the minute that daily practice is over, all the barbarians would invade the city of your heart. Then not much is going on, So anyway, I said two parts. So one part of today, I also want to introduce you to various sections of the empowerment text so that next Saturday, you don't come into the empowerment having no clue what is going on, which is how most of us walk into empowerment rituals. No clue what is going on, then hoping that some magic will happen. Then after that, either yes or no, So hopefully we will look at some aspects of the empowerment text and be more prepared. Then there is the aspect of learning the first layer of Amitabha practice. And for that, we will rely on the aspiration text, the Sukhavati aspiration prayer, attributed to Kyopa Jigten Sumgön. Tradition says that Kyopa Jigten Sumgön composed this aspiration prayer. Although I know some Khenpos are of the opinion that this may have been actually misattributed to Jigten Sumgön. That in fact this was composed by the Indian great master Nagarjuna. But because in Tibet, Kyopa Jigten Sumgön was also often called Nagarjuna. There's a general kind of acceptance in the Tibetan Buddhist world that Kyopa Jigten Sumgön was the reincarnation of the great master Nagarjuna. So then sometimes, there are at least a few texts in the Tibetan world that is said to have been composed by Jigten Sumgön, but scholars are thinking actually might be the Indian Nagarjuna. In any case, it doesn't really matter exactly who composed this, because the content demonstrates, or the content is teaching us about the qualities of Amitabha and Amitabha's Pure Land. So we start there. Yeah? So let's start with Poa. In the Poa text that we now associate, identify as the Drigong Poa, the Drigong Poa, what we call the Drigong Poa, its formal name is planting or standing, let it stand, let it, to plant, to stand a blade of grass, reed. This is referring to sometimes there is the practice of inserting this reed. So it's not grass in the sense of like grass, a blade of grass, but more like a straw, a very thin straw. That reed is inserted at the opening that is said to form, that opens, that actual physical opening that can occur when you do Poa intensely, to the point of actually cracking open a little bit this soft spot at the top of our head here, said to be 8 fingers behind your hairline, is where that opening is. And so this is called Jakshukma, the standing reed, that it can stand. So it's a poetic name for this Poa, which says that it's so successful that it actually opens this gate, this gateway. This gateway leads to what? This gateway leads to rebirth into Amitabha's Pure Land. Amitabha's Pure Land. Okay, now, Pure Land. What are Pure Lands? The notion of a Pure Land is distinctive to the Mahayana teachings of the Buddha. So, first of all, that in the Hinayana teachings, in the lesser vehicle teachings of the Buddha, the individual vehicle teachings of the Buddha, there is no explicit mention of anything called the Pure Lands. Only in the Mahayana section of the Buddha's teachings do we have explicit teachings and instructions about the existence of what we translate as pure lands. So what makes the land pure? What qualifies it as pure? It qualifies as a pure land when a Buddha is present in the land, and by the presence of a Buddha, that land is rendered, is turned pure or pristine. Because a fully awakened Buddha is physically present and available in a particular place, that makes that place a pure land. In that sense, you could say, 6th century BCE, when Buddha Shakyamuni was alive in this place in northern India, in this region, during that time, you could say, that was the Pure Land of Buddha Shakyamuni, that place in northern India. In fact, in the Lotus Sutra, Buddha Shakyamuni says, he says, in fact, this place, Vulture Peak, which is where he supposedly taught the Lotus Sutra, he says, at Vulture's Peak, I am forever present, teaching the Dharma. So in that sense, There is a Buddha Shakyamuni Pure Land that exists right now that is related to this geographic place called Vulture's Peak in northern India. But most of us, if we went to this location called Vulture's Peak in northern India, there is an actual physical location that is identified as that. If you go, you will not actually see the Pure Land. We say because you don't have the karma. In some other texts, it says Buddha Shakyamuni himself is always, or at least still, maybe always is a big word, still is teaching the Dharma at the Vajra seat. And where is the Vajra seat? Well, conventionally, the Vajra seat is in what is we call Bodh Gaya today, again in northern India. In some sutras, Buddha Shakyamuni said, even though, from one perspective, it's said that I have passed away into complete nirvana. My body is no longer visible or available. But in reality, I have never left the Vajra seat in Bodh Gaya. That I'm still teaching the Dharma to those who have the merit, who have the capacity to hear the Dharma from me. In that sense, you could say Buddha Shakyamuni has his own Pure Land. Then, of course, here we have Buddha Amitabha and his Pure Land. So each of these Buddhas have their own Pure Land, meaning their sphere of activity, where they teach the Dharma, where they guide sentient beings. So Buddha Amitabha, the name of his Pure Land, so the name of Buddha Shakyamuni's Pure Land is sometimes called Saha. Saha means the enduring. Enduring. Buddha Amitabha's Pure Land is known as possessing bliss. Dechen. Dechen, depending on how it's spelled, can mean great bliss, as in Dewa Chenpo. Dechen, Dewa Chenpo. Great bliss. Or, spelled differently, it means possessing bliss. Dechen. Chen is to possess, to have. So this translates the Sanskrit Sukhavati, the realm of bliss, the place of bliss. So Amitabha's Pure Land is called Dechen, Sukhavati. Like Buddha Shakyamuni, Buddha Amitabha was once an ordinary sentient being like you and me. So it is said there are three or a couple of main sutras that gives information about the past life of Buddha Amitabha. The most famous one tells a story where many, many lifetimes ago, Buddha Amitabha was a monk by the name of Dharmakara. He was a fully ordained monk called Dharmakara, who was part of the retinue of a different Buddha, a Buddha of Dharmakara's time. So Dharmakara was a disciple of that Buddha. And during that time, in that particular world, in that particular context, beings live a long, long time compared to us. You could say their lifespan were millions of years, according to this story. So it said what happened to Dharmakara was And Dharmakara was listening, receiving many teachings from his teacher, the Buddha of his time. I forgot the name. But Dharmakara was listening to his teacher describe all the different qualities of the different Buddhas that exist, as well as the quality of the Buddha's respective Pure Lands. So Dharmakara heard all these teachings. And it is said that when he was listening to all these teachings, what he was doing was he was what you could say doing research. What was he researching? He was researching how to create the most amazing realm of existence that he could operate in, you could say, so that he can more effectively benefit sentient beings. So in other words, it was part of his bodhisattva practice to understand, to know more and more about the special qualities of all the Pure Lands that exist. And his goal was to come up with, I guess you could say, a super Pure Land. Creating the most ideal world. Ideal for what? Ideal for learning the Dharma and actualizing the Dharma. Ideal for achieving Buddhahood. ASAP, as soon as possible. Not only that, not only was Dharmakara wanting to bring into existence a realm of existence where Dharma is always available, people don't have distractions, but also easy entry. That's the other thing. And so these are some of the characteristics of Amitabha's Pure Land. So Amitabha's Pure Land is not only the place where you could speed up the whole process, but also it has the advantage of next to, not literally, but you could say next to universal admission. In the past, I've joked about, it's like, at least in the US, we have some universities, like University of Phoenix. Basically, if you can send in an application, they will accept you. Now you are enrolled in a university. Then you have like Harvard, you have Princeton, right? Very hard to get in. Only the best of the best can get in. So it is said, like, for example, Buddha Akshobhya's Pure Land is like Harvard. It's like Princeton. Very hard to get in. But once you get in, you are guaranteed success, right? They say like golden parachute, But Amitabha wasn't an elitist in that way. Dhammakara, he was like, I want to provide people with a good education, but I also want to make sure that anyone who wants this education can get in. And free tuition. So in other words, he wants a place that is not only profound, he also wants a place that is easy to get in. Now, of course, the dependent arising for such a place takes a lot of what? Takes a lot of work. Right? If you want a place where you can have the best of the best teachers teaching there, and at the same time, you can admit anyone who wants to go. Then you need to have a lot of resources. You could say infinite resources. Because you will also admit people who maybe don't really want to study, you know. But then your university have so much skillful and so much resources. Even those who don't want to study, once they get in, you know, you have ways of changing them and convincing them. So that is the kind of Pure Land that Buddha Amitabha achieved through his efforts. So it said, you know, he then embarked on creating such a place. How do you create such a place? You actualize all your aspirations within the context of your own practice. So he accumulated merit for countless eons that further deepened his compassion, that further illuminated his wisdom, until finally he achieved Buddhahood. And when he achieved Buddhahood, by the power of him finally achieving Buddhahood, such a place with such conditions also manifested. Because all Buddhas, right, need a sphere of influence. And so then his sphere of influence, called the Pure Land possessing bliss, or the Pure Land of great bliss, Sukhavati, came into existence. And so this is the basic, you can say, mythology, the founding myth of the Pure Land of Amitabha. And therefore all the practices related to Buddha Amitabha, one way or another, is connected to this basic story. Now questions, comments. We need to have someone to pretend to ask a question, and then the baby rabbits will come. Oh, I see a hand. Yes. Oh, the Sangha in Cusco. Very nice. Yes. Please ask your question. Somebody give them the ability to unmute. I think you have been unmuted, but we are still not hearing you if you are in Cusco. We're not hearing you. Maybe type yes, and then somebody can read. Type your question in Cusco, and then somebody can read that question out loud, please. Javier, if you're there. So maybe we can take Haru's question first, and then we'll come back to the Cusco Sanga's question. Go ahead, Harun.
Thank you, Rinpoche. So, following your words, you can be in the Wachen without being enlightened, but being there is not a guarantee that you will become enlightened. I mean,
No, actually,
it's like a shortcut.
yes, actually, absolutely. You don't need to be enlightened to be in the Pure Land, because then there's no point. As in, the reason why you want to go there is you want to quickly achieve Buddhahood. And that's said to be the easiest place to get in, and also not just easy, but it will actually allow you to achieve Buddhahood faster. So in a way, it is guaranteed.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, there's that kind of assurance, or at least, right, according to the story. But then if you insist on being lazy, then I guess even guaranteed can become not guaranteed. Do we have the Cusco question yet, Javier? No, not yet. Oh, writing an essay, maybe. So Lila, go ahead.
Hi. So, you said that as we are in secret mantra, then we are all already Buddhas. Could you then extrapolate that we are all already in the Pure Land? If what the definition of Pure Land is the presence of Buddha?
Yeah. And is that your reality?
I mean, I could see how it would be possible to get there, but I'm not there yet.
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
I just wanted to know what you'd say about that.
Yeah. Yes. Another one of those to add to the koan, to add to the tension, to build up the pressure. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes, Trent.
Amitabha's Pure Land sounds so good. I wonder what how is it edifying? What's an edifying way for me to think of Akshobhya's Pure Land that's so hard to get into? Like, why isn't just having Amitabha's Pure Land good enough?
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the iPhone is good enough, but people are selling all kinds of phones, I don't know why, but I'm not going to stop them either. Right? So in this system, right, we don't have a God in charge of like streamlining, there's no, Pure Land Doge, cutting waste. So any Buddha, because Buddhas exist, so Pure Lands exist, right? Yeah. Then we actually say, depending on karma. So even though, right, Amitabha made it so easy to get in, how many people actually want to get there? Just walk out of your door and knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, you want to go to Pewachen? I'll look at you funny, So maybe they want to go to the Pure Land of, Jesus. So then they go there, And some want to go to, Pure Land of Krishna. So then they go there, And it's said, sometimes, ironically, because it sounds too good to be true, then some don't have faith in it. So some will stubbornly say, I am going to go to Akshobhya's Pure Land. Because that just sounds too good to be true. And if it's too good to be true, it's not true.
Okay, so I have Cusco's questions. There are three questions.
Okay.
Okay. The first one is, upon reaching the state of enlightenment, does everyone create their own spaces like the one they created called Sukhavati?
Yes, but it's not like create in the sense of like literally building it, but the dependent arising is such, right? That your activities will be there. But not only that, in fact, it's said that once you achieve Buddhahood, you're not limited to one place and one body and one form. In fact, in the infinite worlds, infinite realms of existence, infinite manifestations of your Nirmana Kayas and Sambhoga Kayas are active. So it's really a vision of infinity. So, next question from Cusco.
Okay, the next question is, when referring to generating resources so that the teachings are available to everyone who arrives in that realm, does that refer to generating merit?
Yes, it's due to merit that Amitabha accumulated. And so those are the cause and effect that is necessary. Then also the cause and effect on the side of the beings who want or don't want to be born there as well. Yes. So there's one prayer in the Chinese tradition related to Amitabha, kind of a dedication prayer. It says, let me try to remember the words. It says, 愿以此功德庄严佛净土. So it says, I vow that with this merit I have created, may it become an ornament in the Buddha's Pure Land. Often people think, oh, it becomes an ornament in some Buddha's Pure Land. But actually the real meaning is, becomes an ornament in your sphere of activity. We say Pure Land, Pure Land, Pure Land, yes, but you can also call it your sphere of activity when you're a Buddha. So may it become a quality of that place. Then also in mandala offering, in secret mantra, it says that the more magnificent you make your mandala offering, then the more conducive your sphere of activity is going to be when you start teaching, when you start benefiting beings. Then even in the short term, as in before you manifest the full activities of a Buddha. So Kyoba Jigten Sumgön talks about how where when he became a teacher in this place Drigongtil, he says, the place is so cramped, so kind of limited, even though we are all gathered here. He said, but that has to do with, he kind of blamed it on himself. He said, when I was offering mandala, I didn't push hard enough to gather better resources for my mandala offering. And so now in my sphere of activity as a teacher, we are constantly kind of challenged by lack of space. Is there a third question?
Yes, there is a third question. How can we choose which realm to go to?
The one that you are inspired by, and then you learn about what the application requirements are. Just like today, we're learning about, Amitabha's Pure Land's requirements, Then you fulfill the requirements. And then you have to want to go there, Yeah.
Okay. I have 3 more questions from the Sangha in Guatemala. Can I go ahead and make them now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. First question is, Thich Nhat Hanh spoke about the aspiration of achieving the Pure Land here and now.
Mm-hmm.
Can you comment about this? Can you briefly comment about this?
Yeah, wonderful. And so, but, can or cannot, then it's up to you. I think the late Thich Nhat Hanh was addressing something, I think, more easy to understand, which is he's basically saying, I don't believe he's literally saying, Pure Land the way we describe Amitabha's Pure Land. He's basically saying, make your world a better world for yourself and for others. So he used the language of Pure Land. So of course, and in a way, the secret mantra level of Amitabha understanding, which we will go into, is about making this world a Pure Land, but not in an activist kind of making this world into a Pure Land. That's something else. Yeah. Should you try? Well, if you're inspired to, you should. Yes. Especially if the motivation is really bodhicitta, But make sure you don't go about trying to create a Pure Land in this world as an activist and not understand how cause and effect work. Not understand that cause and effect is on the individual level. Then you're banging your head against the wall. Then you'll be discouraged very quickly. In fact, the Lotus Sutra actually talks about how in the Lotus Sutra, when the Buddha, supposedly when the Buddha taught it, then the Buddha Shakyamuni said, and who will help me realize the Saha world, Buddha Shakyamuni's world, as a Pure Land? Who will help me teach this when things get really bad? Talking about our times. Then it is said, some of the famous great bodhisattvas kind of was ready to step forward to say, we will help. But then suddenly, according to the Lotus Sutra, from the earth, these beings started to come up, almost like, dead people from the grave. But of course, they're not dead people. But almost like that, all these beings, all these like amazing, like magical beings, came out of the ground. And there were all these like beings, all these bodhisattvas. And so even these great bodhisattvas like Avalokiteshvara and Manjushri had to ask the Buddha, like, who are these? And Buddha Shakyamuni said, actually, these are my students from the past. And they made a vow to be active in the Saha world, in the world of endurance. And so then these bodhisattvas said, we will take the responsibility of making this into a Pure Land. So who are these? Maybe it's some of you. Can you remember your vow to Buddha Shakyamuni? If you can, now you need to carry out your vow. Next question.
Okay. Amitabha and Amitayus seem like opposites. Transfer of death versus long life. And yet, at the same time, they are interchangeable. Could you expand
How are
on
they
this
opposite?
a bit more? Transfer of death versus long life.
Yeah, that's based on your limited view,
Next question.
Yes.
Okay. Does being in a pure land mean that we have already been liberated from samsara?
Not yet. According to the story, you still have to clear all your confusions. So it's the same. This question is answered by the same answer. When you go to the Pure Land, are you Buddha yet? Not yet. According to this first layer of understanding. Okay, like I said, this Amitabha teachings and understanding, there are layers to it. The basic layer that we're working on, based on that story of Dharmakara and all of that, right? According to that layer, when you go to the Pure Land, no, you're not yet enlightened. In fact, there's even this notion of achieving Pure Land with heavy karma, heavy negative karma. Especially in the East Asian tradition, they talk about this. In Chinese, is 大业往生, carrying your negative karma to be reborn in the Amitabha's Pure Land. So according to that, there are explanation. It says, you still can be born in the land, even if you have negative karma. But one downside when you are born in Amitabha's Pure Land. First of all the births that happen in Amitabha happen in a lotus. So you will be quote unquote conceived inside a gigantic lotus, or as big as it needs to be for you. And then when the lotus unfolds, you will see Buddha Amitabha. Before the lotus unfolds, you can hear Buddha Amitabha, but you can't see Buddha Amitabha. So they say those with negative karma can still be born there, but will be inside a closed lotus until they have cleared the negative karma. Then the lotus blooms. Then they can not only hear, but now they can also see Buddha Amitabha. Lots of details like that. Footnote: how literal you want to take this, it's up to you. But there is meaning there. Yeah, seeing, hearing, only can hear, cannot see. So, all the questions?
There is one more question in the chat, but I believe Kurt was first, so I don't know if he still has a question.
Go ahead. Yes, Kurt?
Oh yeah, mine was really quick. I just wanted to know which Pure Land has the best tacos.
You have to go to Taco Land. Max?
Does one have to make the vow to come back to samsara to help liberate all sentient beings in order to be reborn in Amitabha Pure Land?
Does one have to make the vow to come back
to samsara to help liberate all sentient beings in order to be reborn in
Short
Amitabha?
answer is yes. This is, we will cover this. This is part of the application process for Amitabha's Pure Land. Sometimes there is a set of teachings called the 4 causes for rebirth in Amitabha's Pure Land. So what we'll do is now we'll take a break for lunch. And so it's 12:20 in my local time. We will come back at 2. So whatever your local time, adjust accordingly. We will start again at 2. There we will start looking at the text that we shared, because there the qualities and the characteristics and the application requirements are all there. And again, this is the first layer, the basic layer of understanding and relating to Amitabha's Pure Land, and especially relevant to the notion of power, of transferring yourself from this to the next life. So, briefly again, Amitayus and Amitabha. That we think, there's a contradiction between longevity here and Pure Land in Amitabha. It's based on this very limited idea that there's this here and there's there over there. Basically, it's saying whether here or there, we should not be separate from this principle. So Amitabha or Amitayus, the name actually means infinite light and infinite life. Infinite light is limitless wisdom. Infinite life is limitless compassion. Buddhahood is limitless wisdom and compassion. So we'll take a break now and then come back. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Anupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Dishta Dido Membawa Sutokayo Membawa Supokayo Membawa Anurato Membawa Sarva Siddhi Mempreyacha Sarva Karma Suja Me Chitam Shreya Guru Hong Aho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajrama Me Moncha Vajre Bhava Mahasamaya Sato Am Changchu Semcho Rinpoche Mage Banam Gyegyuchi Gebanyam Pan Me Bayam Gone Gongdu Belwar Sure. Okay.